everybody, it's Holly here again today with a new video for Markerpop, and today we're going to be creating a fun little card using a unicorn from CC Designs. And the unicorn stamp set is called Unicorn Dreams. This is a company that's kind of new to me. This is my first CC Designs stamp set, and it's super cute. And these stamped really nice. They are clear photopolymer stamps, and they did stamp very, very nice. So definitely can recommend those. So I'm going to start out by adding some sponge sugar distress ink to a piece of Nina Solar White cardstock that's cut to 4 by 2 3/4. And I'm going to stamp the unicorn image down onto another scrap piece of the Nina Solar White cardstock using the Memento Tuxedo Black ink. I'm going to set that aside to dry for just a second, and I'm going to use the Avery Elle Pierced Clouds die set to die cut 2 cloud borders and one of the single little pierced clouds that's in the image. That's in the stamp set, sorry, die set. So we're going to make 2 of the borders. Going to run that through my Big Shot. And then once I have the images die cut out here where I want them, I'm going to kind of figure out how I'm going to set up my background. And I just measured the 4 2 3/4 from using I'm going to be using the Postage Stamp Die set from Avery Elle from the latest release. And I just kind of used the inside cutout of it to kind of get an idea of what the inside of the frame would look like to measure my piece. I'm going to go ahead and add some sponge sugar to the back cloud set there, so that just a little bit of that peeks up through the back of the front cloud there. Just kind of tying in more of that pink color that's in my background. And you don't have to be super precise with this distress ink because you're only going to see a little bit of it in the background. So I'm going to go ahead and start coloring in my image, and I'm going to be using RV21, and let's see, I'll put the numbers, I'll put the colors up on the screen here for you. So it'll be RV21 is my dark and RV10 is my light. And I'm just doing basic coloring, so I put down the RV10 first, and then just whisk in some of the RV20. I'm not really blending anything too much. And then for the unicorn's horn, I'm using Y00, Y11, and Y13. Same thing, not doing anything special. Put down the lightest color first, and over the whole area, and then I went in with my mid-tone just along the edge, and then I added a little bit of the Y11. Then for the hooves, I'm using T3, T1, and T0, and a little bit of 0 colorless blender. Same thing there, I'm just basically adding a line and then just blending it all out. This image is very small, you don't have to do any kind of major coloring on it. I'm going to go add some R20 just to the inside of the ears. And then for the body of the unicorn, I'm going to use C3, C1, and C00, and a little bit of the colorless blender to kind of smooth everything out. My unicorn, I want it to be white, but I want to have a little bit of shadow to it with the gray. And at first it might look like my gray is a little dark, and it's going to be that way, but once your image dries and the marker dries completely, it does kind of smooth out some, so it doesn't look as dark as what you think it might be. So I use that colorless blender to go over everything and just kind of blend everything out. So then I'm going to go ahead and fussy cut the image out with my scissors. This image has lots of nice thick lines, which is perfect for fussy cutting. And then once I have the image cut out, I'm going to go ahead and use my Memento Tuxedo Black marker. Any brush tip marker will work. And I'm just going to add some black around the edges so that hides the white from where you cut it out. Kind of makes it a little bit cleaner of an image. So then I'm just going to kind of figure out where everything's going to go. And I'm going to line everything up, and then in the stamp set there's a couple extra standalone star stamps, and I'm going to go ahead and stamp 3 of those in my background using the same Tuxedo Memento black ink. And then I'm going to go ahead and color that with the same colors of ink that I use for the unicorn's horn. I'm going to use Y00, Y11, and Y13. And I really just kind of pop the color in really lightly. And even though there's a distress ink in the background, it's such a light color that it's not going to hurt your Copics or anything, and it's going to go right, the Copics are going to go right over it. You're not even going to be able to tell there was pink behind it. So I'm going to go ahead and tape down that back cloud border and then trim off the edges. And then for my top border, I'm actually going to pop that up on foam tape, but I need to get it all situated there first. So I'm kind of figuring out where everything's going to go again. And I'm going to put a small piece of adhesive on the back of that and then kind of tap it with my finger to remove some of the stickiness, and so I can trim that up to where I want it, so I can see how to line it up to stamp my sentiment on it. There's 2 or 3 sentiments in the stamp set, and I'm using the one that has Sending Magical Wishes. So I'm going to put that in my Mini Misty, and I'm going to use a little grid there to make sure I line it up. I do kind of go off camera here. It's kind of hard to line everything up when you're looking over it. It's a little bit easier when you're closer up, so sorry about that. But I'm just basically lining up with the grid, the transparency there that I have. And you can download the grid transparency on the My Sweet Petunias website and just have it printed out on a piece of transparency at any copy store or office store, and you print out 2 per 8.5 by 11 sheet, trim it up, and you got an instant transparency. So I'm going to go ahead and color those stars in like I mentioned. Real quick and easy. I apologize if you can hear the dog barking outside, out of my hands. So here I'm going to add some glue, and then I realized I didn't want any glue. I actually needed to put adhesive on the back of this cloud, so I'm going to go ahead and add some Scotch 3D foam tape to the back of the cloud. So I'm going to put that there. Then I'm going to go add some foam tape. Oh, first I'm going to use a Copic multi-liner to fix a little spot there on my unicorn that didn't quite take all the way. So I'm going to go ahead and very carefully pull that front panel back up. Going to get everything in place and then add the foam adhesive to it. I think I took the foam tape that comes on the big roll, and I was able to trim it into several pieces, and then later on I'm going to use that same foam tape to adhere the frame. And I actually was able to trim that foam tape into 4 strips, so you can get that foam tape down pretty skinny if you needed to. So go ahead and get that all situated there and adhered down. The top part of the unicorn is actually just going to rest on the cloud, so you don't want to put any foam tape on that because it'll be too high because you want it to be flat because your cloud's popped up too. So once I have that on there, then I'm going to go ahead and die cut a piece of black cardstock using the Postage Stamp Die set from Avery Elle. That's one that just came out with the latest Christmas release. And I'm using the smaller of the 2 postage stamp frames. And I'm using a piece of Lawn Fawn black licorice cardstock. Just going to run that through the Big Shot. And then I have foam adhesive on the lower half of the clouds there, the top one, so I will only need to put foam adhesive on half of the frame, and the other half you can just put the liquid glue on to adhere it to kind of even everything out. So like I said, I'm going to go ahead and cut that foam tape into 4 little strips and work my way around there. Kind of using the image as a guide as to where I don't need to put the foam tape. You could also inlay this image where I would just flip this frame over and then just lay the piece of Nina Solar White with my image on it into it, and then all my image stuff would pop up out of the frame. But with this way, I kind of wanted it to be where all the images are inside the frame, so they're lower in the frame. The frame sits on top and everything else sits behind it. There's a technical term for that, but I can't think of what it is right now. So once I have the frame on there, I think I have it off a little bit, so I pull it back up very carefully. One thing I've learned over the years is don't push anything down until you're 100% sure it's where you want it to be. So once I get that all lined up, I'm going to go ahead and take a piece of Nina Solar White cardstock, and for the card base I'm using the 110-pound weight, but you could use the 80-pound, that would work just fine. Cut that at 4 1/4 by 11, and I'm going to go ahead and score it at 5 1/2 to create a standard A2 size card base. I'm just using my Martha Stewart scoring board there to trim that up, or score it up. And then I'm going to add some of that liquid glue to the back of the panel there. And then I made 2 cards, and my very first card I used Wink of Stella over the entire card. So I went around the edges of the clouds with the Wink of Stella, the unicorn, and the stars. And on this card, it left nice shimmer, but I wanted a little bit more of a sparkle. So on this one, I'm going to use the clear Wink of Stella on the unicorn's hair, the horn, and the little stars in the background. I put 2 good solid coats on it. You could also use one of the Spectrum Noir sparkle pens if you want a little bit more sparkle. And then what I'm going to use some Stickles glitter glue. And I'm going to use that to go around just the outside edges of the cloud. So I'm sticking to the outside stitched border or pierced border. I waited to use this when everything was assembled because the pieces have to dry. The glitter glue takes a little bit of time to dry, but if you wanted to do this beforehand, you could just set your pieces aside to dry and then assemble everything, but this worked pretty good. And it only took a few minutes for it to dry. You could also use the Nuvo crystal drops too for this if you wanted. So I'm just adding some of that crystal rainbow sparkle stickle stuff. And then you can kind of see the shimmer there. And then of course I have to add some Pretty Pink Posh sparkling clear sequin. So I'm using the Mix and some Ranger Multimedia Matte on a piece of scratch paper there. And I'm just going to go ahead and line up my sequins where I want them. And then once I have my sequins in place, that pretty much finishes up my card for today. So thanks for stopping in. Thanks for watching and subscribing. And I will see you guys again next week with another video. So have a great week, and I will see you soon. Thanks. Bye-bye.